because they wanted to make sure that Zhou was okay, which luckily he was, and we're so thankful that, you know, they have the halo. So many people protested against it and said it would be ugly. I think I was probably one of them back then. And the fact that, you know, if you see the pictures, we're not going to repost any of them, but if you see the pictures and the videos, he was trapped literally between the barriers and the fencing. And it looks crazy. Mariam messaging me, I was saying that to her, I don't understand how he walked out of that. That is a miracle.
Max then suffered, I think he dropped down to like 7th, 8th, and was just trying to fight his way back, but he didn't have the pace. I think there was a point where Ocon actually overtook Max, and it was just a bit like, this is weird to see, but also quite nice. I don't know, like Leclerc, he started off well this season. He's up there fighting for the championship with Max. In all honesty, with the way that he's driving right now and the way that Max is driving right now, it looks like a sure win for Max to me. I don't know if Leclerc's got what it takes to actually bring the heat to Max. Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. You're here with me, Mariam, and my co-host Paris, and we're about to break down the British Grand Prix for you. Definitely the most exciting race of this season. 100%. We are 10 rounds in, and yeah, our home race. I don't even know where to start with the action that happened today. It was a roller coaster of emotions, from like heartbreak to like absolute shock, pure joy. I definitely screamed a lot and lost my voice for a bit. There was just so much going on. So I think, yeah, by far the best race of the season. I am very happy with how the race kind of played out. Paris, what are your thoughts on it in a nutshell?
I feel like I want to do that thing where I don't know if any of you watch Love Island, probably a lot of you don't, but there's this guy and he kind of sits down in the seat and he goes, well, let's chat. Because honestly, like, I could talk about this race for hours. I could go over every little overtake, every corner. I feel like this race breathed life into me. It gave me life, honestly. And the only thing that would have made this race better for me is if Lewis had won. Like, literally, it was an outstanding race, 20 out of 20. And the only thing that would have made it 100 is if Lewis was on that top spot, but he still kind of like did really well. So I am over the moon right now.
Okay, I think that's a fair analysis. I think the thing that would have made it a 20 out of 20 race for me is if Leclerc had also managed to get a podium, get rid of Checo, and have both Ferraris and Lewis on.
And you know how I feel about Checo, so Checo on the podium, Lewis on the podium, Max way back down. I am not complaining.
Yeah, it was a great race. So I guess let's touch on quali yesterday. I think the highlight of the session was the fact that Nicholas Latifi made it into Q3, and I don't even know how it happened. Like, I did watch quali, but it was just kind of a like, what kind of thing? Like, yeah. What did you think?
Well, I watched quali. I was chilling with the W series yesterday during the race. So I actually ended up watching quali on screen, and I must admit, it like cut out midway through quali, like the screen. I don't know if they were having like connection issues or something. So for me, it went like this. I watched Q1 and then Q2. I was like, oh my gosh, she's made it into Q2. Go Tiffy's into Q2. And then it cut out for a whole chunk, and then it came back in Q3 and he was in Q3. So I was just like, what the hell happened in that small bit that we missed? And the fact that he, you know, made it into Q2, I was already like, wow, you know, maybe he just needed a bit of rain to mess things up for everybody else. But yeah, props to him, I guess. I think it does take some extraordinary circumstances for him to get up there, but got to capitalize on it.
I mean, he did well considering, like, we all know he's not in a car that's got the pace to be able to drive competitively up in the midfield. He even finished the race today in P12, which I think is probably like his best race finish this season, if not ever. But he did really well to convert that Q3 stint into, you know, I mean, it's not points, but it's a good position.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know where this has come from, but it's interesting to see.
Maybe you just had lots of Nutella yesterday.
I'm kind of thinking, is it a one-off situation? Could kind of, I mean, we've got 3 more races this month, sorry. It's just about seeing if he can actually hold on to this magical pace that he somehow found.
I don't think so. I think out qualifying Albon, and today obviously in the race, Albon, a lot of people had a lot of issues. So I think this is a one-off race, and he's just got to enjoy that little limelight while he has it. And then yeah, probably be business as usual from next week.
Probably. So yeah, moving on to the race today. There is so much to talk about, so much happened. So I guess the main thing that came out of today's race is the horrible first lap incident between Russell and Guan Yu Zhou, where Zhou actually ended up in between the tyre barrier and the catch fence. If you've seen pictures of it, it's horrific. The replays of it were honestly so shocking. Zhou was literally upside down, skidding into the gravel and then flipped over. It was just insane. Yeah, that happened. Who else was affected? I think.
So then Vettel ended up going into the back of Albon. Ocon also got hit in the melee. So you literally had only 3 DNFs, surprisingly, after that incident, which was Russell, Albon, and Zhou. But there was a lot of people in the mix, like trying to get out of the way. And yeah, it was a massive incident. Race immediately got red flagged. They initially weren't showing any replays of the race, obviously because they wanted to make sure that Zhou was okay. Which luckily he was, and we're so thankful that they have the halo. So many people protested against it and said it would be ugly. I think I was probably one of them back then. And the fact that if you see the pictures, we're not going to repost any of them, but if you see the pictures and the videos, he was trapped literally between the barriers and the fencing. And it looks crazy. Mariam messaging me, I was saying that to her, I don't understand how he walked out of that. That is a miracle.
Yeah, I mean, I was getting live images through and videos through from my colleagues and stuff, and it was just insane. But I guess just a quick shout out to the halo, really, because it's also saved Roy Nissany's life in the F2 race this morning. He had an incident where, similar to what happened between Max and Lewis last year in Monza, Nissany had Hauger's car on his head, so the halo helped him there. And also, we didn't really see much of it because everyone was so focused on what happened with Zhou and Russell, but Albon also collided massively into the concrete wall, and again the halo helped. So I think, yeah, just a little shout out to the halo there. There's so many of us, definitely myself included, who are like, it's not needed, we don't need it, like we just don't want it. But I'm so grateful for it now. I'm so grateful that we've got it. But yeah, so I mean, the race was red flagged. Russell was straight out of his car, went over to Zhou to see if he could do anything. Like Paris said, we couldn't see anything for ages, and it was just kind of the unknown that was panicking us a bit because we were like, is he okay?
Mm.
A bit similar to what happened with Grosjean in Bahrain, really, with the whole fire thing where we didn't see what happened for ages until they made sure that he was okay. But yeah, the incident itself, obviously ridiculously horrible, but after the race we did see some shots in the paddock of Zhou talking and walking and looking completely fine, thankfully. He's obviously been for medical tests. Albon also, because of what happened with him, was flown out via helicopter to Coventry Hospital for checks. I don't think there's been an update on him as of yet, but hoping that he's okay. So yeah, the session was red flagged. I can't remember exactly how long we were not racing for. I want to say something like half an hour or so, but they did a very good job to clear up the track. And then we had a restart, which, amongst all the chaos of what happened in the first lap, Verstappen actually took P1 from Carlos Sainz.
Yes.
So,
and Lewis made it up from P5 into P3.
Yeah.
Lando Norris made it up. I think he was in P4. Like, basically, the first lap, as it stood, was a great first lap. And then during the red flag, I think it was pretty good. Like, you've got people who didn't start.
Max getting into the lead. No thanks.
Not Max. But it mixed it up straight away. And I think there was reports during the red flag that they were going to go back to the qualifying order because one lap hadn't been completed. So essentially they had to restart the race. And that meant that Sainz would end up back in first position. Everything is reset. So you had Sainz in first, Verstappen second, and Leclerc third. Hamilton back down in fifth. So the second restart was very different to the first. You ended up, like, Sainz had a much better getaway on the second time round, managing to get away from Max. And then conversely, Lewis had a much worse getaway and ended up fighting with Norris for a few laps to try and gain back a position that he lost. So I think it was just such an interesting restart to the race, and the first lap, I mean, it just delivered, like, honestly.
It did. It was incredible to see the battles between Leclerc, Verstappen, and Sainz, and just seeing how they're all trying to obviously Sainz trying to keep the lead. And he did screw up a little bit, actually. He ended up going wide into the gravel, allowing Verstappen to take the lead. And it was just quite frustrating, obviously, because especially if you're a Ferrari fan like I am, like, you don't want to see that. But then later in the race, after, like, so many people have, like, having small battles between themselves, Max ends up suffering with some sort of issue that we're still not sure about on his car, and he ended up really slowing down. And I don't think anyone was complaining. I think there were a lot of cheers, actually.
So after he got the debris, but I think what I couldn't figure out was if the debris also caused, because it caused a puncture and he pitted to fix the puncture, but I didn't know if the debris also caused the other issue with the car. Like, it wasn't very clear.
Yeah.
Or if it was like a reliability issue or something that just came at the wrong time. I mean, you would assume that it was because of the carbon fiber that he ran over. Maybe it just ended up in the wrong place or something inside the car. But yeah, I was not unhappy to see Max Verstappen tumbling down. I think also it was good for the championship because it closed up the gap between him and Perez, because in the end he wasn't really able to recover back up into a higher points position. So Perez, ending up in a much higher points position, managed to reduce the deficit. The deficit is also reduced to Charles, who's in third. So I think it just makes the rest of the season a little bit more fiery and a little bit more interesting as well, knowing that we don't know who it's going to be at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed. But yeah, I mean, it was strange to see, and I think, like I said, like you could hear the cheering on the TV. The home crowd was definitely out for Hamilton this weekend. But when Max was slowing down, you could just hear all the cheering and everyone kind of happy that he was dropping down. And as he always has been in the past, I mean, we don't really hear it much now because he's doing well, but he just kind of reverted back to old Max, and you could just hear him screaming down the team radio, and it was just like, oh, there he is. But yeah, I mean, Max then suffered. I think he dropped down to like seventh, eighth, and was just trying to fight his way back, but he didn't have the pace. I think there was a point where Ocon actually overtook Max, and it was just a bit like, this is weird to see, but also quite nice. So yeah, that was Max's race kind of done from that point. They didn't retire him. Obviously, any points are crucial, so they kept him going, but he couldn't really regain any kind of positioning.
No.
But that being said, like moving on to Hamilton, whose home race it was, he drove a superb race today. I think he did so well in putting his car out there and just really fighting.
Yep.
Hamilton's in a position now where he doesn't really have much to lose. He's like finishing races kind of fifth, sixth, not bringing home the most points, but still doing something for the team. So he's kind of in a position where he's just like, I don't have anything to lose. This isn't my championship right now. I'm going to give it everything that I've got. And we definitely saw that today. His battles with Leclerc and, you know, even as you said, Norris at one point was trying to like get onto him. And I was like, what are you doing right now, Lando? But yeah, I think Hamilton's precision and his focus, and obviously the fact that it's in front of his home crowd and not wanting to let us down, and also the fact that he had a record to kind of maintain in that this was his 13th race being on the podium at Silverstone. That's pretty impressive. So there's so many different factors that must have played into his mindset, into making him want to actually go for that podium finish. And he did. He fought with Leclerc, who unfortunately didn't have the best strategy, and managed to bring home P3.
Yeah, I think this race is so important to the British drivers as any home race would be. So once George was out, I think there's even more onus on Hamilton to have a good race because for the fans and stuff. So on top of his own wants, but for the team, and generally, I think a lot of the teams bought upgrades this race. So you had Mercedes bringing upgrades, McLaren, Williams. Don't know if Aston brought upgrades, but Red Bull as well. So generally, a lot of them were having a massive upgrade package being brought to Silverstone based on the first 9 races. So they obviously have collected a lot of data on the new cars. They are much more aware of like things like the porpoising, how the ground effects work. And I think that meant that you had Lewis in a much better position as well than we've seen him all year, because he had a car that he could trust to do the things that he wanted to do. Because imagine him trying to do that in the car that he had at the beginning of the year. It would have been slipping and sliding underneath him, porpoising, and he wouldn't have been able to even keep up with Norris or Leclerc or Perez or Sainz. Like, so I think there was so many things that just came together for him today, and so many things that just made us happy. Usually, he's had such rotten luck with the safety cars, but honestly, I think he was so close to a win today. It was just 2 or 3 things that went slightly awry for him. His pit stop was slightly too long. When he restarted on the softs, he had a bit of a hard getaway. So later on in the race, there was another safety car as Ocon pulled over with an issue, and they all took the opportunity, the front runners, except Charles Leclerc, which we'll get on to get onto a little bit later, managed to get onto the soft tires. And I think he seemingly at first didn't have as much faith in the soft tires because he still had 10 laps left to go. So he was thinking, are we going to be able to run hard to the end of the race? But thinking about it, like they are the grippier tire and they're the tire that you want to be on. If everybody else is around you is on the softest tire, you want to be on the soft tire as well, so you can get a good getaway at the restart. And so I think he just lost out a little bit there when they did restart. But other than that, he drove honestly magnificently. The bits between him and Perez, I was screaming at the TV. I was like, he was getting so close, and then I thought he was going to get in front of him, and then Perez like overtaking him. Oh my, like honestly, my heart was beating the whole time.
Me too. It's literally the kind of racing that you want to see, like just everyone in there trying to fight. But again, like it was nice, clean fighting. There wasn't really much to complain about, I think. So yeah, Hamilton did really well today, and I'm just so happy that he managed to bring home a podium in front of the home crowd. It means a lot to us for sure. And even though I myself as a Ferrari fan, I'm first and foremost a Ferrari fan, then I consider myself a Hamilton fan. So for me, I was really like, why is Perez in this equation right now? How can he just piss off? Because I don't want him on a podium, but I really want Carlos, Leclerc and Hamilton on a podium. I just had no idea who to root for. I was literally sat there like, okay, yes, go Hamilton. Okay, no, Leclerc, I need you to win this. It was just proper conflict. Yeah. But I can't complain. I think in this instance it's hard because Leclerc needed those points for his championship fight because he's the one who's contending with Max right now. So I really wanted him to get as many points as he could. But at the same time, like, it's Silverstone. How can Hamilton not be on the podium for this, Yep. So I think regardless of what I wanted and regardless of the fact that Perez just came and screwed over my plan, I'm happy. I'm happy with
and Checo came from nowhere because he had he had contact with Leclerc on the first lap, and it meant that he had to pit really early. So I could see him slowly getting up there, getting past a few people. But I did not think that he was on for a podium. Like, it just shows the power of those Red Bulls and how fast and nippy they are and how much pace they carry. I mean, obviously, if Max hadn't had any issues today, he would have probably been up there as well. We would have had like a 5-6 way fight. I don't even know what it was. So I was just surprised when it was like the safety car restart and Perez is like just there as well behind Norris, and there was that great moment where like Leclerc and Perez were fighting, and you just see Hamilton like slip past him, and then a few laps later Perez comes back. It was just honestly the craziest couple of laps that I think I've witnessed in the longest time. Last year, I'm just thinking like when have we had such crazy battling, and I'm trying to think of a race from last year, but it was just brilliant. Honestly, I don't think I could speak more highly of this sport at this moment in time.
Yeah, I mean, you could, but we won't even go into that. Yeah, no. Perez did kind of come out of nowhere. But I mean, if it's going to be one of the Red Bulls, I'm glad it was him and not Max. No offense. Yeah. But yeah, I think like just touching on Leclerc a little bit, he was in touching distance of that podium. Sainz, Hamilton and Leclerc all led this race at one point. Leclerc kind of was just, I don't know if the pressure was getting to him, but he was kind of racing like 2018 Leclerc, where there were just a few moments like going wide and just kind of just screwing up a little bit. And it was just like, what are you doing? Like, you're trying to hold on to this, but you're trying a bit too hard. And that is essentially what cost him. That is why he lost out to Lewis on that podium position, because there was a point where he just went wide, and it was like, why? How did you manage that? So I think, I don't know, like Leclerc, he started off well this season. He's up there fighting for the championship with Max. In all honesty, with the way that he's driving right now and the way that Max is driving right now, it looks like a sure win for Max to me. I don't know if Leclerc's got what it takes to actually bring the heat to Max.
That is a really big statement from you, because I know how much you want Charles to just like seal the deal, or at the very least take it to Max. I mean, today he was obviously also screwed up on strategy, not on purpose, but I think they just didn't have enough time to like get him into the pit, so he was on like worse tires and stuff. But at the same time, like you said, there was times where he was a bit sloppy, and I think Ted Kravitz at the end mentioned that he now hasn't been on the podium for 5 races out of 9. So if he does want to be a world champion contender, and he does have, like, he has the car, he has the race acumen, and I think he just needs to like do something with it. There's something missing.
There is something missing, and I don't know what it is, but he's starting to revert back to like rookie Charles, and it's stressful. But yeah, you're right, like it was strategy as well that kind of played into his loss today. Obviously during the safety car, the team just decided not to pit him, and after the race you did see Binotto kind of giving him a bit of a finger wag and just being like, don't blame.
What do you think that was about?
I don't know. I imagine Leclerc probably had a lot to say about strategy, and like there were times where both Carlos and Carlos and Charles were both on the radio saying like, let me overtake him, and then the other driver was like, let me overtake him, and there was even instances where both the Ferraris were battling each other, which really got my heart racing. But yeah, I mean,
I rate Ferrari for allowing that, to be honest, because that could have gone south so quickly. Like a very, very, very small part of me was hoping that it would. I must admit, not a massive part, surprisingly, because I really do love when there are those battles on track, and I prefer to see the battles have an outcome. Like I much rather when Lewis was fighting Leclerc and Perez and getting up there himself. So I think, but there was a part of me where I was like, if they crash right now, Lewis would be first with no, like the thought goes across your mind. You can't help it. The thought goes across your mind. That's what you want. That's what I wanted. So, but at the same time, like I said, I highly, highly rated Ferrari because they did not need to let them race, and they were like, race for a few laps. If it's not working, switch them, kind of thing. And I think that was fair, completely fair, and that's the way it should be done. Too long, I think a lot of people see Carlos as number 2, and there are so many times where I feel like he shows that he's not just a number 2. And I think this is another instance where he shows that, he also can win races. He also can compete and drive really well.
Well, his first race that he's won, 150 F1 appearances, and he's finally converted his first pole position into his first race win. So yeah, Carlos is really showing that he does deserve to be in that Ferrari seat alongside Charles. But Charles, I think he's not helping himself. He's third in the driver's standings. I feel like this is now becoming not a battle between Leclerc and Perez, who's ahead of him, but more probably Sainz and Leclerc.
Yep, and then Perez and Charles. Yeah, Perez and Max.
Yeah, so I don't think he's helping himself really. But I guess just the last point to touch on, going back to Max, is the last few laps between himself and Haas driver Mick Schumacher.
Yeah.
What the hell happened? Where the hell did Mick get his pace from? Because you've got Verstappen racing in P7, I think, and Mick was like P8, with Seb behind him in P9, and then Magnussen rounding it off in P10. Like Mick literally was battling for P7 with Verstappen up until the checkered flag.
Yeah.
Up until they raced
Using
to that
his
point.
DRS. I think it was great for Mick, like that's good battling history for him to have under his belt. I battled Verstappen. Obviously Verstappen's car was not in tip-top shape. He would have slapped up Mick if he was in 100%, but the fact that Mick was there, like getting his first points and of the season, and just doing really well. He didn't mess up. I thought he was good.
I think that was the main thing. Like, we've seen a lot of mistakes from Mick, but I think you're racing the current championship leader, and there was no kind of, he didn't tap into him. It was just racing. So I think kudos to Mick for bringing home his first points in F1, and also for battling against the championship leader. Yeah, honestly, I can't recommend you guys watching the highlights enough. If you have time, go watch the whole race, because it was epic.
I will definitely be watching this race again. I feel like I need to soak it in even more, and maybe even do a second thing. I'm not doing a second video with you guys, but that's how much I feel like I could go on and talk about this race even more, because it just was, this to me is what a race should be like. You had a number of different drivers with the ability to compete. And do you remember, like in the last race, I was saying I didn't feel like the 2022 cars were truly giving them the opportunity to race. I have to eat my words a little bit, because maybe it wasn't the cars, maybe it was the track, I don't know. But today they definitely were able to race. You had racing throughout the pack. It wasn't just like the people at the front that were racing. There was a lot of racing going on in the midfield, and it was also, there was strategy, there was also people crashing out, and minus Zhou's crash, which was obviously completely terrible, but just the taps and people going wide and stuff like that. That's this kind of stuff that you see when there's crazy hard racing and people make mistakes. So this is what I want to see as my F1. I want to see the field mixed up. I want to see the overtakes. I want to see the fighting for multiple laps around corners, and I want to see the crazy strategies all together. So absolutely delivered for me. Yeah,
I 100% agree. It was everything you want to see in a race. And you know what, the thing is, we were racing at a great track. Silverstone is a track that allows for this kind of racing, and it's something that I kind of want to see more of in F1. I think there's too many like street circuits and too many circuits that just aren't built for this kind of racing. So I think for like future developments, I know that we're working on the Vegas race right now, but like future track developments need to take things like this into consideration, because it gives you good racing, which is obviously what Formula One is about. So yeah, anyway, moving on to our winners and losers of the day. Give me your loser of the day.
My loser of the day, damn it, I didn't even think about this, because I was so caught up in who I was super happy for in the race that I didn't really actually think about who lost out and who underperformed. I'm gonna say Ricardo. I think he did not capitalize on anything in this race. I don't know what is going on with that guy, but I think the highest he made it today was like 10th or something like that. Like there was one point he was just about in the points, and that could have just been because people were out of position for pit stops and stuff, because I'd have to go back and check to watch it and really find out how he ends up in that position in the first place. But I mean, Norris is up there. Norris is 5th. 6th at the end, but he was running in fifth, and I don't know, just terrible, honestly.
Okay, fair enough. I think that's a very good loser of the day. I'm going to give mine to just Max, I think. Like, I know it was out of his control. He obviously is a very good driver. He brings home really good points, really good finishes every race. Can't deny that he is a good driver. He knows what he's doing. But today, even though it was out of his control, he lost out big time. So do you know what? I might double that with Leclerc, because Leclerc needed to capitalize on this and he didn't. So yeah, but most of all, it goes to Verstappen, because also you're at the British Grand Prix, like this is the best race for him to lose out on. So yeah, that's my loser of the day. Who's your winner of the day?
I'm going to give my winner of the day to Carlos Sainz. I think winning your first Grand Prix at Silverstone off of the back of your first pole, the way he stood up for himself to Ferrari when they were trying to back him up on the last safety car. So you had Leclerc, who was on hard tires, he was on soft. Hamilton was on soft behind him, and they were basically saying to him, if you're allowed 10 car lengths on a safety car restart, so you have to keep within 10 car lengths of the car before. And they basically said to him, maximize the car lengths, get all as far back as you can, so that when Charles restarts, he's able to get away. And then Sainz was just like, no. He was like, I'm in the race as well. That doesn't make sense. I've got pressure behind me. He's got Lewis, Perez, Norris all on the back of him. Why do I have to do this? So, and I think Alonso was even in that mix. And you know what happens when Alonso's on stuff. Like it honestly, just I loved hearing him like just stand up for himself like that. And the fact that he then delivered on top of standing up for himself sealed the deal for me. So definitely Carlos Sainz, winner of the day.
I'm stealing everything that Paris just said and going with Carlos Sainz too. Just because I think it makes sense, right? Like everything that Paris has just said is a very good reason as to why he deserves winner of the day. He was just on it. And I'm just so happy that he finally, after 150 races, managed to convert his first pole into his first win. He deserves it. He's a good driver. He's been undervalued for so long. So yeah, I'm really happy with Carlos, and hope to see more of it from him, really.
Yeah. So yeah, the next race we have is actually going to be next week. It will be the Austrian Grand Prix. So we'll be back then to talk about everything. I hope the momentum of this week carries into next week and we get just as epic racing. It is a good track, so I think we might be able to see this before we go to Paul Ricard, which is going to be so boring. But let's see what happens. And yeah, in the meantime, please make sure that you are following us across all of our socials. That is YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Check out all of our videos, like, subscribe, give us a follow, share us with your friends, do all of the above, because it means that we get to make more content like this and enjoy more time with you guys. Leave your comments below on your thoughts of Silverstone. Were you there? If you were a British Formula One fan, let us know what it was like and how much fun you guys had, or not fun if you didn't have fun. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.